question of extraterrestrial life has puzzled people for decades. Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, he was the sixth man to walk on the moon, and he says he's certain we are not alone in the universe. He's now speaking out about why he thinks the government actually knows this to be true.
For decades, people all over the country have questioned the existence of extraterrestrial life.
Hey, you guys want to see him?
Blockbuster movies have been based on those suspicions. And every year people record seeing strange objects and lights dancing across the sky. But do alien life forms really exist? Former astronaut and scientist Dr. Edgar Mitchell is one of 12 men to have walked on the moon. On January 31st, 1971, Mitchell, along with two other astronauts, embarked on the Apollo 14 mission to outer space. Now, during his 9 days in space, he became the sixth man to walk on the moon.
Our mission on Apollo 14 was to begin to start doing science on the moon, notably set up a science station and do a geology trek.
While his 9-hour spacewalk revealed interesting facts about the surface of the moon, one of the most intriguing things that Dr. Mitchell would discover had nothing to do with his Apollo 14 mission.
I did grow up in Roswell, New Mexico, which was the site of the so-called Roswell incident, and was living there at the time that happened, even though there was a great deal of keep people quiet from the government. The lore for many years was that it was a UFO crash.
July 1947, a mysterious explosion rocked Roswell, New Mexico. Strange debris was recovered from the scene. At first, the government said the mysterious object was a, quote, flying disc, but later explained that it was just a top-secret research balloon. However, locals and UFO enthusiasts adamantly believe that what really crashed that night was an alien spacecraft. Adding to the intrigue is a deathbed admission from a public information officer on the case who said it was not only a government cover-up, but that bodies of space aliens were recovered from the site.
Because I was a Roswell boy, a local person, and also I had the credibility of going into space and going to the moon, some of the locals came to me, and a couple of the military and intelligence people came to me. They wanted to tell their story because they couldn't tell it. They were sworn to secrecy.
After hearing numerous accounts from seemingly credible eyewitnesses, Dr. Mitchell decided to dedicate his studies to the research of extraterrestrial life.
In 1997, I was in Washington, and it was a disclosure conference. Went to the Pentagon. We asked for a meeting with the Intelligence Committee in the Pentagon. The Vice Admiral that we met with said, well, I don't know about that. And he said, I'll find out. Subsequently called and said, you were right. That program is there and did happen. I'm going to see if I can get into it. And we got information later that he did find the people responsible for doing the current work, but was resoundingly told that he had no need to know, therefore he couldn't come in.
But why aren't UFO research findings reported to the public? Given all the government secrecy, Dr. Mitchell says he isn't surprised that people are afraid to report their stories to authorities.
Knowing many other military aviators who have had encounters with UFOs in the air and tried to talk about it, they were always debriefed by intelligence people and then told to shut up and don't say anything.
But Dr. Mitchell is, quote, not the only astronaut to question the existence of extraterrestrial life. And the late Gordon Cooper, one of the original 7 Mercury astronauts, was also convinced we're not alone. One of the themes of his memoir, quote, Leap of Faith, is his belief in extraterrestrial intelligence.
When he was at Edwards Air Force Base on duty before his selection, there was a UFO incident there that he observed, got some pictures of, and tried to report it, and did report it, but his pictures disappeared.
We reached out to NASA for comment. They told us, quote, NASA is not involved in any sort of cover-up about alien life on this planet or anywhere else in the universe. Dr. Mitchell is a great American, but we do not share his opinions on this issue. But the question still remains, are we alone? Despite the government denials, two of the most highly trained people who have ever traveled into space firmly believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. Should their opinions be so easily dismissed?
The more we see the pictures from the Hubble telescope and we see the immensity and the majesty of the universe, and the billions of stars and the billions of galaxies. The knowledge that they have developed is really quite good. It should be convincing anybody that what they have seen is very, very powerful.
Milton Torres says a U.S. intelligence agent ordered him to keep his mouth shut. The odd encounter is one of hundreds of once classified UFO sightings released last month by the British government. It's the sort of disclosure UFO investigators are demanding from the U.S. government.
How would people react?
Well, it would be kind of good. It's about time.
Former astronaut Edgar Mitchell is the sixth man to walk on the moon and a firm believer that aliens have visited our planet repeatedly. So I had to ask,
Why are they coming in these little glancing visits and we haven't had a more meaningful dialogue or contact or attempt to communicate with these
Well,
people?
I think we have.
Really?
I think we have, but it is not common knowledge.
Mitchell told me after he returned from the moon, he was briefed at the Pentagon by a high-ranking officer, whose name he would not reveal, who said the U.S. government does have evidence of alien spacecraft and is keeping it a secret.
Well, I think the reason it's still a secret is power and control, controlling whatever technology exists.
All of this is fascinating.
Apollo 14 went well. Dr. Edgar Mitchell was on that flight, and he tied another famous guy for the longest, Alan Shepard, for the longest moonwalk ever. He's now 77 years old, and he let something out of the bag that's been covered up for 6 decades. That we've had multiple encounters with aliens, and they've come here and they've decided to leave. And we even know what they look like.
They're little people who look strange to us. They look exactly like E.T., Brian.
Yeah.
So maybe the creators like Steven Spielberg actually had this inside information as well when he created E.T.
Well, he wasn't that famous then. He only had done Jaws. If someone does Jaws, would you open him up to alien information? I'm not sure. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to put my best person on it, or Sean in the green room.
So I'm trying to figure this story out too this morning. This Edgar Mitchell, he says that they visited Earth on several occasions, that the government has repeatedly covered up this for 6 decades. When you are on one of these missions, when you're one of these famous astronauts, do you not sign like a confidentiality waiver?
It says, if you see an alien, don't say anything.
Just a minute. We're only telling this small group of people that aliens, in fact, do exist. And by the way, before you leave this room, you will sign this document.
Wait a second.
It says you will never talk about this to anyone. Why has no one else talked about this before? Or has anyone...
Is your take on this? You're upset that he telling everyone?
Yeah.
But the biggest story is we've had alien encounters.
No,
this is incredible.
You're just taking his claims at face value?
He walked on the moon. He wore a helmet and a suit.
I don't know. You have no idea what state of mind he potentially could be in.
You think he's crazy?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this is one guy, and my question would be, since I always wanted to be a lawyer, my question would be, what sort of legal violation potentially happened here?
You see, I don't think...
By spilling the beans.
I don't know that... I don't think they sign anything. Like, if you're going to tell a story, you got to have it cleared through NASA first.
Well, why is there classified information then?
Well, see,
there's classified information for a reason.
Here's the question. At what stage after Apollo 14 did he receive this information? If it was before or after? I mean, this does play into the whole Art Bell thing where, you know,
who's the overnight host?
Yeah, he's a radio guy and stuff like that.
So you're saying if it was 19...
Roswell.
Because right now, these groups of aliens know more than we do. They're smarter than us. They have better grades than us, better SAT scores. They're more sophisticated. And he is grateful that they're friendly aliens. And Steve, your point is, when did he get this information? Because in 1970, they were ahead of us. In 2008, we might have caught him.
If it's true, we don't even know if it's true.
You don't think it's true?
We don't know that he's, you know, this is the kind of stuff you hear from people who sit around in the dark wearing aluminum foil hats.
But he's an astronaut.
I know, and he's a guy who served his country for years, and we salute him, but is this real?
I don't, he says it's been well covered up by all of our governments for the last 60 years, but slowly it's leaked out, and some of us have been privileged to have been briefed on some of it. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm chilling over here. Governments. I mean, the United States, and what other governments are involved in this intergalactic cover-up?
And why wouldn't they land in New York? Like, why can't they?
Did you see the War of the Worlds movie?
I would have.
That didn't work out well. You don't want to hear.
Hopefully next hour we'll have ET and see if, and we will hold this picture up because it's been a lot of years.
Maybe we could get Edgar Mitchell on the phone, the guy himself, to say whether or not this is actually true.
You want to call him this early?
We don't know.
Yeah, for this kind of story.
By the way, as an homage to this story, Toba the audio guy has William Shatner now singing songs, famous.
Is this Chico the Man?
Well, Shatner's singing, I'm going to tell you about the biggest threat to homeowners. This former Apollo 14 astronaut, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, was on a radio show over in England, and he says that for 6 decades the government's been covering up the fact that aliens do exist. Guess who's joining us on the phone? Dr. Mitchell, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Dr. Mitchell, you've walked on the moon, you've done so much, you've had a fantastic career. How long have you known that we've had contact with aliens?
Well, I've known for 60 years. But, however, as a result of my astronaut experience, some of the old-time, I call them the old-timers, who were hushed up, they wanted to pass on their story before they passed on. So I was contacted, and I was told their stories many years ago.
Okay, Edgar, who are the people who told you there were aliens, and how would they know?
I'm not going to give names. Some of the people were just locals involved in the so-called Roswell crash when that happened. And also, my folks were ranchers in that area, and we knew all the ranch people at that point throughout their life.
Because, Dr. Mitchell, that was my whole point when we discussed this earlier today, was what kind of secrecy document would you have to sign if you were given this type of privileged information?
In those days, there wasn't a document.
Yeah.
They were threatened. I mean, there was real threat. You're not going to talk about this.
Like, for example, when you talk to these people who wanted their stories to live on because they won't.
It was just to confirm that the Roswell incident did take place, and it wasn't, the government knew it was an alien spacecraft.
Now, it was about 10 years ago. You had a press conference where you laid all these facts bare. You talked about this in public.
I actually went to the Pentagon and was talked to intelligence officer at the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know about this, but I'm going to find out.
All right.
And he eventually called me back and said, you're right, but he couldn't get in and get access to it.
What's that guy's name?
No, I'm not going to tell you that.
Well, I mean, because look, Edgar, a lot of people are listening to this and they're thinking, well,
I don't care what they think. You want my story? I'm telling you.
No, we understand, but some people think that it's
so let me ask you this, Dr. Mitchell. Do you think that other people now will come to the forefront since this is being discussed again, since you're bringing this?
I think it's about to, because there's been a lot of very serious and good investigators working this problem for 50 years or more.
I mean, you realize this is the story of the century, if it's true.
Well, the fact that we have not alone in the universe, that's a very important story.
I mean, that's better than a little bit of water on Mars.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you, it beats water on Mars, and the fact that these little creatures are nice and smarter than us is bigger news.
Dr. Edgar Mitchell, we thank you very much for joining us on the phone to try to straighten things out, and we thank you for getting up early this morning down there in Florida.
And at some
what
point,
do you think, well, Dr. Mitchell, what do you think of Bill Nye's assessment when it comes to what happened, that this was a spy balloon?
I'm sorry, Bill Nye he was saying everybody's colored by their beliefs and not looking at the evidence. I'm sorry, he's not either. And I think he's totally wrong.
Let me ask you. Hold on, don't interrupt. Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Mitchell, I'm fine.
Well, I eventually went to the Pentagon and asked for a meeting with the Intelligence Committee of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which I got. with another naval officer who had had many similar experiences. And we told our story. And this gentleman, a vice admiral, said to us, well, I don't know about that, but I'm going to find out. And called a few weeks later and said he had found the source of the black budget funding for this project, and that he was going to subsequently investigate, because if it was real, he should know about it. As a matter of fact, he should be in charge. That was his words. And so we did get calls from him sometime later, and a report much later than that, that he had found the people responsible for the cover-up and for the people who were in the know. And we're told, I'm sorry, Admiral, you do not have need to know here, and so goodbye.
All right, Bill.
So what are you saying? So did you, first of all, did you interview these people on their deathbed or under oath? Okay, I want the viewer, I mean, I'm not going to change your mind. So that's for, go for that. Then, you know, you said
they sought me out.
You referred to a vice president.
They sought him out.
Okay, yeah, but they were not on their deathbed. A deathbed declaration is quite a different thing from seeking you out and telling a story.
Hey,
I mean, this is not for you. I'm not going to convince you.
I am not interested in arguing with you. I'm telling my story. If you want to shut up and hear it, I'll be glad to talk. Otherwise, no.
Okay, I'm claiming that you haven't made a claim about aliens. You made a claim about a cover-up, which I'm right there with you. And you made a claim about an admiral who was not given clearance to read it. I'm right there with you on that. But go ahead about the aliens.
I happen to have
Dr. Mitchell, we're going to do more on this. I want to invite you back for a longer period of time. You're a distinguished American. We appreciate your appearing with us.
Thank you, Larry.
Hey, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, do you believe the government lies about UFO activity? Our next guest, a career military man, says it does. You're watching Larry King Live.
They obviously have a different body configuration than we do, and the little grays, that's the most prevalent one.
He walked on the moon. Tonight, he says, aliens are among us.
Former astronaut Lake Worth resident Edgar Mitchell has raised some eyebrows and ruffled some feathers with his claims.
Tonight, News Channel 5's Tim Malloy goes one-on-one with this true believer.
With his beloved terrier in his lap in his comfortable Lake Worth home, he could be a retired insurance salesman. But take a look at Edgar Mitchell's wall, his photo gallery, that picture taken on the moon, February the 6th, 1971.
What more can an explorer want than to be where humans have never been and to observe, gather your data, go back and tell the people.
Ed Mitchell can captivate you talking about his 9-hour and 17-minute moonwalk. It was a record. But there's something else he'd like you to know.
I don't know how many or where or how they're doing it, but They've been observing us and here for quite some time, and we see these craft all the time.
Ed Mitchell is a straight talker and a true believer that we are not alone.
I believe what I'm saying, and I cite the evidence that I know.
He says that the government he served in the military and as an astronaut is perpetuating cover-ups of alien sightings, going all the way back to the legendary 1947 Roswell incident, an alleged alien spacecraft crash where remains were allegedly recovered.
The reason for the denial was, number one, they didn't know if these were hostile and could we protect ourselves from them. Didn't want the Soviets to know, so they devised to lie about it and cover it up.
Mitchell is unbothered by critics who think the guy with the right stuff has taken a wrong turn. He has no doubt there are alien craft observing Earth right now, and many more out there looking for us.
How many civilizations could there be, or do you believe there are out there?
Billions. We got billions and billions of stars in a galaxy, and billions of galaxies, and it doesn't take but a few planets around a few stars to have quite a few civilizations.
Dr. Mitchell is one of only 12 people who have walked on the moon. He says he has never personally seen an alien, but believes the people who say they have.
Dug into this, very talented people.
How about in addition to that, though? You know, we talk so much about the Roswell findings, what's there, what wasn't there, the secrecy surrounding that. But from your studies of astrophysics, from being an astronaut, from going to the moon, from studying the pictures of the galaxy, tell me something that you've seen or that you've studied that you just feel in your gut there is something else out there.
Well, that you're saying it right. It's an intuitive feeling. After looking at the heavens and the modern pictures of the Hubble telescope, from the Hubble telescope, and seeing the complexities and the beauty and recognizing the universe is much more complex and magnificent than our earlier pictures, our earlier understanding would have ever let us imagine. And so that, you're right, that's the intuitive aspect of it. But the real question here that we have been addressing is, have we been visited? Are we, since we are now a spacefaring civilization, having only gone to our own moon, but have our visitors, the aliens, have they come to us? And all the evidence says yes.
So what is it that you want to see the Obama administration release? What is it specifically? What do you think is there that we need to see?
Well, the other nations, and this has been a global phenomenon, other nations and just in recent history, the Belgian nation, the French, the Brazilians, the Mexicans, the Argentines, all of their files have been opened up, and there's no reason in the world why the U.S. files, the leading nation in the world in this period, should have been reticent in opening ours too, except special interest groups.
So Edgar, but let me ask you, I mean, for all the stories that have leaked over all the years, I mean, and there's always somebody somewhere that's going to leak something, and if there was really something there, don't you think by now somebody would have said something?
Oh, it has. People have been saying it all along. But for example, just the explanations of the Roswell incident has changed every few years, and a new story comes out. If it were really that simple, if it weren't what it really was, you wouldn't need all of these various stories coming out. And so the attempt to cover this up and to disguise the issue and create misinformation and disinformation is very well recorded. And the documentation from very fine researchers like Dr. Robert Wood and his son Ryan, who've investigated all of the early documents, all point to the same story. Hey, we're not alone here when we've been visited.
Well, Edgar Mitchell, I'll tell you what, it fascinates all of us. We'll stay on it, and please let us know if you're able to dig a little deeper and bring us a scoop. Edgar Mitchell, great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, okay, you heard from a man who's been where only a handful of Earthlings have been before. Does his argument add any gravity to the issue? Tell us if you think the president should open up the mysterious UFO files and why. Our email, cnnnewsroom@cnn.com. We're going to read your responses in just a bit.
Attention.